Bruchim haboim. Welcome everyone. We're about to begin Be'ezras Hashem together on Daf Zayin Amud Aleph, the second line from the top. We learned previously that if a person is going to be Tamei Meis when it comes to Yudalid Ben Nisan, he cannot bring the Karban Pesach because he himself is Tamei in Opoisel de Avoida, whereby he then has to wait an entire month until Yudalid Be'iyar, Pesach Sheni, to then bring his Korban Pesach. However, that's in regard to the individual. The Gemara learns out, however, when it comes to the Tzibur, when it comes to the community, if Roiv, or certainly all of the community are Tamei, they can still go ahead and bring the Korban, not only by Korban Pesach, but that's also true with other Karbonos Tzibur that are designated for a specific time. The question, however, is this heter that Tuma is going to be permitted, is this dechuya or is this hutra? What would be the difference? So the Gemara explains, according to this, if you have a situation when you have a base av, that's the kohanim that are designated to do the avodah on Yom Rishon, and they are all tamei, they're all tameim. According to the opinion Rav Sheshis that says that Tuma dechuya b'tzibur, they'd have to go then find kohanim in a different base av to do the avodah. But according to Rav Nachman, that Tuma is hutra b'tzibur, you can even use those kohanim within this base av, even though they are tmeim. Alternatively, the Gemara explains, perhaps the machlokes is between Rav Sheshes and Rav Nachman. If you have a base av, again on Yom Rishon, here you have kohanim are both taharim and tmeim. According to Rav Sheshes says dechuya, you must use the kohanim that are taharim. But according to Rav Nachman, that he says tumas hutra b'tzibur, you can even use those kohanim in this base av that are tmeim. Now the Gemara comes and explains Rav Sheshes' opinion. Where does he know it from? Says the Gemara Rav Sheshes, Minah minala. Where do I know that tumas dechuya b'tzibur? Explains the Gemara, the Tanya from the following brayso: Haya oimed umakriv minchas haomer v'nimt meis biyadoi. A person standing to then bring the korban minchas haomer, which is brought on Tes Zayin Benisan, the second day of Pesach. It's a flour offering of the barley, which is matir, the new grain, and he realizes that he is tamei. The Bryce goes on to say, Oimer umevin acheres tachteo. Then they bring another person in his place to then offer the korban minchas haomer. Now, v'im ein shom elihi. The Bryce continues, if there's only this person who is tamei, oimrim loy, they'll say to him, have pikeach b'shesoik, be wise and be silent. In other words, to go ahead and do the korban mincha nonetheless, because we have no alternative. Ad kan the Bryce. So Gemara says, Kitoni mihas, from here in this Bryce we learn, Oimer umevin acheres tachteo, teaches that we come and bring another person in his place. Why do we have to do that? It must be that we see from here, Tuma is dechuya b'tzibur, because if not, we should allow this person who is tamei to go ahead and bring the korban mincha. Omar loch Rav Nachman. Rav Nachman will answer for himself and say, indeed, we say Tuma is hutra b'tzibur, but modina heicha di'ika shirayim la'achila. I agree, however, in a situation when there are leftovers to be eaten. Over here, when it comes to the korban minchas ha'omer, one koimetz is brought on the mizbeach, but everything else is eaten. And since everything else is eaten, therefore, you cannot eat the korban in the state of Tuma. And therefore, even Rav Nachman agrees we should try to find somebody who is tahor to go ahead and bring the korban. Meisved, the Gemara continues to ask on Rav Nachman, who holds that Tuma is hutra b'tzibur. Haya makriv minchas porim ve'elim ukvosim v'nit meis biyadoi. We have a situation where a person is about to makriv these different karbonos, and he is then determined to be tamei. Oimer, he says, umevin acheres tachteya. Bring a different person in his place to then offer these karbonos. V'mein sham Elohi. The Brisa continues, however, if there's only him, then oimim loy. They say to him, Have pikeach v'shesoik. Be wise and silent. Then go ahead and do the avodah. Ad kan the Brisa. So Gemara explains, My lab porim elim ukvosim dechag. Are we not talking about these karbonos? And therefore they belong to then the chag, the karbonos that are brought on Sukkot, which is communal offerings. And here we're talking about where, since he was tameh, we should find somebody else. If we can't find somebody that we don't have a choice, then he brings it in a state of tumah. So we see from over here that indeed tumah is dechuya b'tzibur, like Rav Sheshes says. Omer Rav Nachman will respond that indeed tumah is hutra b'tzibur. Why over here is it different? Loi, because parim par avodah zarah. Here it's a parim of a par. It's a for avodah zarah. This is the bull that we're talking about for avodah zarah. And therefore, since it's for avodah zarah, here it's different. Because since it's a par for avodah zarah, we see over here that this is a reason why, indeed, the tzibur, which is in korban oila, is to go ahead and bring it. Granted, it's a korban tzibur, but in order to then be hutra b'tzibur, it has to be kavua, and here it's not a kavua dika korban. Granted, it's a tzibur korban and a communal offering, but it's not designated for a specific time, so then it doesn't have this heter. Elim, we're talking about be'eyai lo shel Aharon, which means it's from the individual. The Afagad, the Kiviyah Leizman, is true, it does have a designated time on Yom Kippurim. But, Kiven the Yachidu Mehadrinon, since it is for the individual, we do have to find somebody else. Even Rav Nachman agrees. And thirdly, Kivasim, Bekeves Haba Im HaOimer. It's a keves that is brought with the korban Minchas HaOimer. Not like we said before, those other types of korbanos, of mincha that we thought was before. Here, this mincha is indeed a minchas ha'oimer, and therefore the ike shirayim la'achila. Here they do have shirayim la'achila because a korban mincha, we said before, is brought with the koimates and is put on the mizbeach, and the rest is eaten. And therefore over here, since we require that it only be eaten by taharim, therefore we also then look for somebody, including Rav Nachman will admit that we look for somebody to bring the korban who is tahor. Meisve, the Gemara continues to ask on Rav Nachman, Dam shenitma v'zarkoi, dam that became tamei and then is still sprinkled on the mizbeach, is thrown on the mizbeach, b'shoigeg hurtza, b'mezi lo hurtza. The Brisa says if it was done b'shoigeg, that he threw the dam on the mizbeach, then it will be hurtza, it will be an appeasement, it will still be valid. Whereas if it was mezid, not. So over here, l'chara, we have the same question. Here we're talking about something that should be hurtza even if it was done b'mezid. Because after all, tuma's hutra b'tzibur. Answers Gemara, Kitanya hidi yachid. This Bryce is talking about the individual. And therefore, again, it doesn't apply the concept of hutra b'tzibur. It's here it's yachid. Toshma. The Gemara asks again on Rav Nachman, Al mahat tzitz meratze. The Brisa says on what is the tzitz? That's the big day of the Kohen Gadol, the beged of the Kohen Gadol that's worn on the forehead. So here it says on what is the tzitz meratze, which says kodesh la Hashem. So what is that meratze? This head plate. Al adam v'al habosav v'al hachelev shenitma bein b'shoyim bein b'mezid bein b'oinis bein b'rotzoin. Here it states that the tzitz is meratze for all of these things, and it adds even bein b'yachi bein b'tzibur. The Isak the Gemara asked on Rav Nachman that tumah is heter he b'tzibur. That means hutra b'tzibur. Lama li l'ratzuye. Why do you have to come on to the tzitz the meratze if you already have the concept that the tumah is hutra b'tzibur? Says the Gemara. Omar Loch Rav Nachman, he'll answer, Ki ketoni hatzitz meratze adi yachid. That which it says over here, that the tzitz is meratze, is going on the yachid. Granted, it said in the Braisa, bein b'yachid bein b'tzibur. B'tzibur meant that you don't need to come on to the tzitz. That's going to be hutra b'tzibur, even in all the situation that we said before, if it's b'tzibur. If it's a yachid, then it requires the tzitz to be meratze. Even you want to say that it's true that reading of the Braisa is such that it's going on bein b'yachid bein b'tzibur kipshuto, that the tzitz is meratze, so then but over here, the reason why Rav Nachman says that you need the tzitz is because it's not kaveh zman, and it's not kaveh zman. This we're talking about over here in the Braisa. Therefore, it's not hutra b'tzibur. You need to come on to the tzitz to be meratze.